that we are holding our meeting on the unceded territories of the Sishat and Hupachessit First Nations. We do have an agenda in front of us. Are there any items to be added by councillors? Oh, Councillor Solda.
Madam Mayor, maybe you, somewhere in the agenda you could talk about the assessments and how they work, just so the public knows, because a lot of people think, oh, it's us, and
Yeah.
maybe we can explain it a little more.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe just under new business. Okay, so we'll
Thank
add
you.
that. Okay, great. And any late items to be added by the clerk?
No, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Then would somebody like to move approval of our agenda as amended? Moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. And we have minutes from the special meeting held at 10 a.m. and the regular meeting held at 2 p.m. on December 13th, 2021. Would somebody like to move adoption? Moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Solda. Any comments or changes to the minutes? Councillor Corbeil.
Just a question, Madam Mayor. In the minutes, we talked about us engaging with stakeholders regarding the Alberni Pacific Division. What came of that?
We have a meeting booked to have that discussion. So haven't had it yet. We weren't able to coordinate it over the holidays, unfortunately. Thanks for following up on that. Any other items to speak to from the minutes? Okay, seeing none. Adoption is moved and seconded. All in favor? Carried. And that brings us to public input period, which is an opportunity for members of the public to address council on topics of relevance to City Council. A maximum of 4 speakers, and we give 3 minutes each person. Would anybody like to step forward? Come on forward, Mr. Anderson.
I actually mean it to help resolve this problem, and although I'll be quite direct.
We're having a bit of trouble hearing you. Can you, I'm not sure if, leave your mask on if possible. And yeah, just pull the mic a bit
Okay,
closer to you, and that way we can make sure people who are watching at home can hear better as well.
Oh, definitely. Is
Thank
that better? Okay, thank you. At the December 13th City Council meeting, our CEO gave a short report updating the status of the ongoing deficiencies at the Kingsway Hotel, which I was glad to hear. I imagine the full report was probably discussed by council prior to the meeting, and for the first time in approximately 2 years, appeared to get the attention of the City Council, and this appeared to get the attention of the City Council members. I did not attend this meeting. Had I known that Kingsway would be on the agenda, I most certainly would have. Considering since approximately mid-February 2020, I have been persistent in my attempts to obtain answers to many questions regarding work taking place at the Kingsway. I was both surprised and disappointed when this appeared unexpectedly on the agenda. Every member of the council had this opportunity to respond to the issues and Ms. Poon's apology. However, Again, the concerned citizen, after waiting almost 2 years, was not made aware of this issue being brought forward, and again was denied the opportunity to voice in this matter. Today, some of the questions still remain unanswered. Accountability also remains to be an issue, and the example I give of that is several tons of debris were removed from the renovation, and no inspection for harmful materials were conducted. This is one reason WorkSafe put a stop work order in the building. It is reasonable to say that a building built in 1923 to 25, I believe it was, Helen, may contain asbestos, and eventually there was asbestos found in the lower floor. Workers, employees, and the people residing in the building may have been subjected to this asbestos because there was no asbestos assessment made. To me, this is a huge issue. Ms. Poon's apology, unfortunately, does not excuse this total disregard for the health and safety of the public and the workers employed by her. Where is the accountability? And a letter of apology, in my opinion, just does not cut it. At the comments on the last meeting, be clear, it was mentioned, I want you to be clear that there is no one holding anyone on council to higher standards. The expectation is that everyone, whether you're a council member or a business owner, everyone is held to the same standards. Council mentioned at the last meeting, if this is a regular citizen, they're probably, I'm reading this because I've only got 3 minutes, there probably wouldn't be much discussion going on. This is not true. The same rules would apply regardless of someone is a member of council or not. Or I could look at that another way, meaning if it was a regular member of public, it would have been resolved right smack the first month it was brought up. So there's 2 ways of looking at it, and which I would agree with. I'm not going to document on Helen Poon's apology. Too much is in my file back there that I'll never get out to the public and don't intend to. I want this to go away as well, but the right way. Helen knew from the very beginning that she was violating provincial codes and bylaws and work-safe standards. This is Mrs. Poon's second offense for non-compliance. In 2016, a stop work order was posted on a project in Vancouver. Same thing, no permits. My last 2 comments are to the City Council. I truly wish, and I'm sincere about this, that over the last 23 months, just one council member would have contacted me, picked up the phone, contacted me, and given me a chance to convince you that I have done my homework, that I know what I'm talking about. And just give me a chance to put forward my concerns. And big mistake, bad advice was given to someone. For 22 months, all 6 councillors seemed to agree to the same silence on the issue. All agreed, all said nothing. I felt I was not taken seriously by staff and council, and I find that extremely insulting. I'm still here and will not go away until I get some other answers. That can be done in any form that you want. I'm prepared to meet with anyone at any time. Doesn't have to be here. And I did my last comment, because I don't see the thing, but I'm sure.
You are out of time, but I'm letting you have an extra 30 seconds.
I appreciate that. Is on page 88 of today's agenda, Mr. Roland Smith, who does such an excellent job of putting things in paper. I wish I had his skill level. I don't. And I would appreciate if the public read that letter, page 88 in the long form of the agenda, scroll down, and he covers a lot of the issues that I've tried to do in the last 3 minutes. One other point I want to mention that one councillor said, why is it being brought to the city council meeting? Last point. I brought it to a city council meeting because I attempted and gave a lot of time to get feedback back regarding the meeting we had on February 28th, 2020. I received no feedback month after month. Call me next month, call me next month. And finally I said enough, and I called WorkSafe BC, and they initiated the process. And finally, after two sessions, they thought they put the stop work on the building. The city followed suit afterwards. I'm not sure if the city would have ever put a stop work on it. And the reason it came to council, fair enough, Quenser, if you cannot get your answers from a branch of the city council, in this case with the building and inspection, and I don't blame the inspector at the time. I said to him at one time, I think you're not being allowed to do your job. Doesn't comment. He was very true to his employer. But that's how I felt. And so when you can't get answers from a department, you have every right to come to the council. It's your job to ensure that every department is working effectively. Thanks for giving me the extra time.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. And if council wishes, a motion could be made during new business. If council would like me and the acting CAO to sit and have a meeting with you to list out any of your outstanding questions, then I'm happy to do that. So we'll add that
Well,
under
I
new
might have a
business.
couple of questions. One that's truly on my mind that I haven't got an answer. Who is the subcontractors? Who is the plumbing contractor? Who
Yeah.
is the building and contractor?
And council won't have that information, but staff
They
would.
should have it by now.
Yeah, well, staff will have it.
And why
Council
didn't
wouldn't.
they take permits out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay. Come on forward. And if you don't mind just stating your name and address for the record, and then we'll start our 3-minute timer, and we'll try to be a
Okay.
little closer to the 3 minutes this time.
Won't take 3 minutes. I'm Tim Toll, 2836 Second Avenue. I'm here to talk about the proposed pathway. One thing that struck me when I looked at all of it was, first, it's $7 million. When we did the skating arena, it was $6 million and went to referendum. What I'd like to know is why this hasn't gone to referendum. The other part that comes up is, why is City Council spending money when they don't have the grant in place already? It seems to me that we've done a lot of that over the years. I'm a 50-year resident of the valley, and over the years I've seen a lot of money spent on nothing. It didn't turn out, or it turned out to be too expensive, whatever the reason. I would prefer to see a referendum. I'm not sure that it would pass. Hopefully they don't do what they did with the skating referendum and do a parcel tax, because in that case I paid 5 times what Pulp Mill paid in taxes for the arena, because I had 5 lots at the time. Anyway, that's my concerns. I also have a concern with the previous speaker and reading about what's going on. Our city council should not be held to a higher standard, but they should be held to the same standard as the rest of us. Thanks.
Thank you. And so just for your information, there's, because we don't typically respond to specific questions during this period of time. That said, there is a lot of information on Let's Connect PA, which is our engagement platform about the key to key, including a question and answer document that could answer some of your questions. And then also for your information, we do have a committee of the whole for our budget. Our first one actually next Monday at 4 p.m. So probably of some interest given the comments that you've made today.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay. Would any other members of the public like to speak today? Okay, seeing none, then we will move on to our delegations. The first one is David Hooper, in attendance from Western Vancouver Island Industrial Heritage Society. Welcome, David.
Madam Mayor, councillors, staff. My address, 2926 12th Avenue, and as said, I'm a member of the Industrial Heritage Society, and I've come just to pass some information to you. I dropped off an information package to all of you, and it's about an upcoming event this summer, COVID permitting, naturally, that we are in the process of organizing. 2022 is the 100th anniversary of a very famous made in British Columbia truck, many of which worked here in the valley, especially in the boom years of the 50s, the 1960s and 70s. The company shut its doors in 1975, but 47 years later, it has still got quite a lot of affection from truckers, and it's got a well-deserved fame. Any rate, why Port Alberni? My answer is, why not? Because this truck was the backbone of the forest industry, the logging industry, after the end of the rail logging. The question was, how could you move logs to keep the mills here supplied in volume, and Hayes did the job. They were reliable, and they were tough, and something that was much appreciated by the drivers is they stopped better than most of the other trucks, especially in the early days. If you go look at some of our oldest trucks up at the Industrial Heritage Center, no doors. That's so the driver could bail out. Okay? Any rate, truck show. 10 years ago, Steve Dryberg and Jim Faulkner organized the 90th anniversary of this truck. Okay, and they held it up at the Fall Fairgrounds, and it was a big success. 3 days, it was July 1st weekend. They had people there from New York, Denmark, Alaska, United States, the mainland. It was a big deal, a big turnout, and it was a shot in the arm for Port Alberni. Okay, accommodations, restaurants, etc. And I would anticipate, again, COVID permitting, it'll be a good thing for the valley. Something just to remind you, up at the old arena on 10th Avenue, 9th Avenue, we have 10 or 11 Hayes in the collection there. Okay, and here in town, there's another 2 or 3 dozen owned by private owners. You can almost do a show right there. But there again, Cowichan Valley, Nanaimo Valley, Comox Valley, Calmo River, Hayes were there. But I'm not going to wait for those guys. We can do it. So that's what we're doing. Just a little bit of a history lesson. I can't help myself, sorry. But Hayes were built near where Granville Island is now, downtown Vancouver. The oldest restored Hayes Anderson is here in the valley. Ross Stevens has it. And it'll be on display. It's actually in that calendar I gave you guys. The last one off the assembly line is here in the valley. Steve Dryberg has it. Another thing you should know, it's the only logging truck that's ever been on a Canadian postage stamp. It's a Port Alberni truck. Also, the only logging truck to carry an Olympic torch. It's here. Okay. And also a very famous truck, the one that spent the first 6 months of its working life at Expo 67 Montreal. It's here. Okay, we've got the core of a show all by ourselves. Thing is, it's also another way just to keep Port Alberni on the tourist map, give people a reason to come here. And just a little thing about when Steve and Jim organized their show. Any money they made, they donated to the Children's Hospital. What we're going to do with any surplus, it's going to go to West Coast General Hospital, their ER expansion. So that's in the back of our mind, not too far back. It's one of our intentions. Any rate, when? BC Day long weekend, 3-day show, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, up at the Fall Fairgrounds. Bit more wiggle room, good place for loading, unloading. And question of who can come? Anybody, it's free admission. We want it to be accessible to people young and old, not just people that can cough up the dough. We also, it's not just a truck show, okay? We're calling it Hayes and Friends. So we're going to be inviting other people that have got something to show, including some of the current dealers, including local ones, if they want to show something off. The radio control guys are going to be there demonstrating their little models. That's always, people like seeing those. If Al Mason is healthy, we'll have the boat basin going with the little radio controlled boats. We're probably going to try and make it. You guys didn't show up very well. Actually, last time we had a show, there was a competition for who could operate radio controlled boats. And I think only 2 of you showed up, and I think the mayor cleaned house. So, yeah, some of you guys better show up. Okay, and a steam train, a little steam train, that guy from Victoria, he's scheduled to come up. He likes coming up here. And there's space there, and he says he's gonna do a figure 8 or an oval or something there. So there's gonna be stuff to see and to do. And we're not coming to you hat in hand. We're coming here just hoping that you will cooperate and support. That's what we would like. So that's my message to you, and I thank you for your attention. Any questions?
Thank you, David. I want to just thank you and the rest of the group from Industrial Heritage Society for your work and keeping this going. I will just let you know that although I was very happy to win the boat competition, my kids love the truck show. So when it was supposed to be on last summer and then was canceled, they were very disappointed. They were really looking forward to going. So hopefully it can be on and even bigger this year. Looking forward to it.
That's our hope.
Yeah.
Thank you
Any
for
other
your
questions
attention.
or comments from council? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to unfinished business. We have one item today from the Director of Corporate Services, the 2021 Resolution Tracking Summary. Twyla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So council in their package has a brief report which speaks to the summary of council resolutions carried out in 2021. Roughly 294 formal directives of council, of which we have about 19 outstanding. Of that 19, there's probably going to be 4 or 5 more that are wrapped up over the next week or two. Happy to speak to any of those items specifically if council so chooses.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Paulson.
Just one question as I was going through the list. It's number R21-158. And just kind of wondering, and I don't need the answer today, but what the status of that is. I thought that the truck was going to be in our possession last September, but
Pardon me, this is the aerial apparatus truck, and I
That's
know our
correct.
acting CIO can provide council with that update.
yeah, I don't need the answer today if you don't have it, but
I guess I can just comment that our fire chief continues to work on what are the best options for that, and we will be bringing a further report to a future council meeting.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Okay, I just want to thank staff. It is, the numbers are really impressive to know, first of all, how many resolutions we made last year, but how many are wrapped up fully. So I know that doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of ongoing work. Looking forward to obviously wrapping up the ones that do remain outstanding, but it's a great indicator of how much work has been done and accomplished over the last year. And I will move just receipt of this report. Okay, seconded by Councillor Solda. All in favor? Carried, thank you. We'll move on to staff reports. Item number 1 is accounts. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that the certification of the Director of Finance dated January 17, 2022 be received and checks numbering 149688 to 149862, inclusive of payments of accounts totaling $3,695,290.46 be approved. And if you would indulge me, Madam Mayor, I have the Deputy Director of Finance just to explain why we spent so much money this time.
Great. Rosalind, do you mind coming forward?
Thanks, Madam Mayor. So it's quite a large check run we did have just due to the period between last council in session. So I did take a look and found about 5 lump sum payments that totaled about 63% of the entire check run. Included in that is our RCMP second quarter police services agreement for just over $1.6 million, as well as a few capital project payments. So we have a check for $176, or $176,000, and that was for Bowerman Construction for a 2021 water capital project in progress for the Cowichan Main Reserve, New Twin Main, Phase 5. Also a check for $217,000 for another capital project, a 2020 sewer capital project in progress for our Phase 3 of our Coal Creek project. Included as well is another check to Anderson Hill Limited Partnership, and that was for $160,352, and that was just a development deposit refund. And then finally, I do have one check for $157,000, and that was for our MIA-BC 2022 premiums. And that totaled for most of it. I think that was just about $2.3 million of it.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much for that. So we have, any questions further? Okay, hearing none, thank you, Rosalind.
Thanks,
So moved and seconded, all in favor? Carried, thank you. And item number 2 from the Deputy City Clerk, we have the BC Council of Forest Industries Annual Convention and authorization for councillors to attend. So I've had interest expressed. I would like to attend, and Councillor Corbeil and Councillor Haggard I know have expressed interest. So we do need a motion to authorize councillors who would like to attend. I believe my registration is covered by Kofi. Are there any other councillors who would like to try to attend this year? Okay, seeing none. Councillor Corbeil.
Madam Mayor, if I could, depending on what situation we're in at the time with the pandemic, if they were to go virtual, I would hope that all councillors would be interested in attending. Just recently, the truck loggers was canceled, and they did a virtual conference. And I'm usually not a big fan of virtual conferences, but I was really impressed with the format and the amount of information that we received. So, yeah, I would just keep that in mind, depending on where we are with the pandemic at that time.
Yeah, the truck loggers convention did a great job of getting so much information into a reasonably short period of time. I think one of the challenges with virtual conventions is that they typically do run really like 9 to 5, and when you're home you have other commitments and other meetings you need to be in, so we end up missing a lot of them. So I thought it was nice that they really compacted their sessions, and they were really valuable. So absolutely, if it moves to virtual, which there's certainly a chance that it will at this point, then I would encourage any members of council who can to attend. Okay. With that, I will move that council authorize the mayor, Councillor Corbeil, and Councillor Haggard to attend the BC Council of Forest Industries annual convention taking place April 27th to 29th, 2022 in Vancouver, with authorization to include reimbursement of expenses incurred as per city policy number P6 travel expense policy. Seconded by Councillor Solda. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. And item 3 from the Manager of Community Safety, we have Cannabis Regulations Report.
Madam Mayor, members of council, members of the community, my name is Chris Baker, Manager of Community Safety, and I'm here to speak today to a report for information on the subject of cannabis regulations. While putting this report together, I spoke and corresponded with local government staff and staff from the Union of British Columbia Municipalities. They were helpful and encouraging while recognizing this is an unsettled area of law. And this was an interesting area to look into a little bit more. I must admit that being relatively new and relatively complex, it was interesting, but also revealed how much I still need to learn about these areas. As suggested, I spoke to Campbell River, and they have had some success with dealing with some of the local effects of this new industry with an existing bylaw that they've had in place for a number of years. Their nuisance bylaw has had an odor section originally put in place to deal with seafood processing, but they've had some success with applying it to property owners that are operating cannabis related businesses. And so the interesting piece of that bylaw is that it requires the property owner to engage with.
Sorry to interrupt. Deb, do you
Yeah.
mind just putting your mic up a little bit? I think some people are
Yeah.
having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, no worries. Is that better? So yeah, the interesting part of that Campbell River bylaw is that it requires the property owner to engage an odor specialist, who then produces a report, and then the onus is on the property owner to abide by the conditions of that report. And again, that's in their nuisance bylaw, which was in place since before the Cannabis Act came into effect, and was originally put into place to deal with issues related to seafood processing. And then I also contacted the Union of British Columbia Municipalities. They have a cannabis policy technical working group that's currently engaged in a number of different areas, or a number of key policy issues affecting local governments related to the implementation of the Cannabis Act. There's also been some resolutions passed by the Union of British Columbia municipalities asking for additional sort of help and clarity in dealing with the impacts of the Cannabis Act. And then also, as mentioned in the report, the Health Canada is currently started. It was legislated and part of the plan from the beginning, but started in October 21st of 2021, and that will also look at the effects that this rollout has had, because this is a piece of federal law, but then the impacts the impacts to neighborhoods are felt locally, and then that's what's brought us here to discuss this. I'd be happy to answer any questions if there's any questions that you have for me.
Thank you very much. I know this is an issue that affects all of our communities in both positive and negative ways, for sure. So really appreciate having kind of an overview of where different pieces of legislation fit and who's responsible and what other municipalities are doing. So I thought your report was really, really interesting and very helpful. And I think some of the conversation that we've had is really when, the system does break down and we do end up with an odor issue, whether that be from, I think it's probably a bit simpler if it's from a newly licensed facility that falls under our authority and our program that we've put in place. It's less simple when it's one that falls under the previous system, where a municipality didn't have any approvals to approve a site like that. So the conversation that we've had is around, if Health Canada is the organization that's supposed to be mandating and regulating the old licenses and the new ones, is Health Canada available to us to reach out to when there is a problem? And what we always hear is that Health Canada isn't resourced for that. So have any other communities that you're aware of made progress other than, the Campbell River and the potential of the bylaw that they're putting in place, or that they have in place, regarding odor?
Specifically regarding odor?
Yeah.
I think just through nuisance bylaws, yeah, there has been some other areas, other municipalities that have gone down that same path. I think different municipalities are sort of at different stages in regulating, because of that cascade effect of the Cannabis Act coming in, and then municipalities looking to figure out how they want to fit it in a regulatory framework.
Okay, thank you. Other comments or questions? Councillor Paulson.
This whole thing over the last 10 years or whatever still has me bamboozled between the feds, the province, and what's been handed down to the municipalities. With regards to grow ops that were before the current legislation, I wonder if they might fall within the nuisance category in our own bylaws at that point. You know, maybe that may or may not supersede what's happened with the new ops, but just a thought that we could maybe investigate that. And I'm tired of people in these grow ops using it as an excuse that they, no, I'm not under that legislation because I was grandfathered, and we have to find a way to deal with it. And I think that's the single most common thing that we hear is odor complaint in our community. So, like I say, I'm still a little bamboozled at the 3 levels that this thing is leveled out at, and I don't think it makes your job any easier either. So, just a comment. Thanks.
Yeah, and I think if I could just add to that, you're right. You know, the complaint we do hear is odor, and I think it's really important to clarify that this is not odor coming from newly created, properly created facilities. This is odor coming from systems that were set up under the previous lack of licensing requirements. So that's a challenge, I think, for all of us in the community and many communities to struggle with. And I think it puts a negative reputation on the entire industry when we did go through the process recently of intentionally allowing this industry into our community and creating zoning for cultivation. That's the type of industry we want to encourage here, and unfortunately that industry is left with a bad reputation because of the previous existing licenses that are not held to the same standard that we're trying to achieve. So the odor certainly continues to be a concern for a number of properties, and I certainly hear about it regularly. Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Being a little long in the tooth on the council, I do recall when the facility on Butte Street, which I believe is federal, was started up without, we had no say on that. They just went in and did it. And the concern at the time was with the veterinary clinic being so close, would the odor affect the vets and the clinic? And at the time they said, well, we've already been running for 2 weeks, so we've got a good filtration system. And fast forward to last Saturday, I was called down there just to come in for a smell, and it was like across the corner at the bus station, and the odors, which I assume emanating from the Butte Street facility. And then again, like it says, that was made back then, that's federal, and there's little or nothing us as a municipality can do about it. But the odor thing, we have to address that as a nuisance, I guess, because it can be very offensive down there on those early mornings when the fog is rolled in and it's just hanging right there, and it's not fair.
Thank you. Other comments or questions? So I think as a follow-up to this, and for next steps, we do have AVICC potential resolution discussion later in the agenda. I do think it's worth us submitting something to AVICC and UBCM around this. Additionally as well though, and maybe a question for you, Chris, or possibly for Twyla, do we know if we, assuming we need updating to our nuisance bylaw, if we wanted to try to address some of the issues that are existing, or is our bylaw as it sits sufficient?
I think if we wanted to use the nuisance bylaw, it would likely be a good idea to update it with a view to using it for this purpose. And looking at Campbell River, I think is a good idea. I think that piece of referring to a third-party expert is novel. They got it from the States, I understand. They took that not from somewhere else in British Columbia. So I think that would be a good thing to really look at.
Okay, thank you. So Council, there's no direction required here unless we would like to direct, specifically that maybe council direct staff to bring back a report on potential updates to our nuisance bylaw to address odor.
I'll move that, Madam Mayor.
Okay,
Second,
moved
Madam
by
Mayor.
Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you very much for the
Thank you.
report. Okay, moving on to bylaws. Item 1 from the development planner, we have development application for proposed zoning bylaw amendment 5405 Argyle Street.
Oh, here we go. He's so tall. Hey, there we go. Great. Okay, for your consideration today, thank you, Madam Mayor, for the introduction. For your consideration today is a request for zoning bylaw amendments at 5405 Argyle Street. This is the property at the corner of the entrance to Harbor Quay. It's at the corner of Argyle and Bird Street, or Bird Avenue, B-I-R-D. This is the property. You can see it highlighted with a yellow box right there. There's a photo from 2015. It looks much newer now. It's been renovated since. And this is a summary of the application. So the applicant is requesting that residential above commercial will be added as a use to the building. It's an accessory use, which means it can only occur on the second floor in conjunction with commercial businesses. This would enable a suite on the second story. And they also are requesting barber, beauty shop, salon, and spa, which are specific personal services which would be added as a principal use. And the background on this application, council last considered it at their December 13th meeting, in which they directed the applicant to revise their application to remove their request for office as a principal use on the property. The applicant has since revised their application, and staff are bringing it back for consideration of first and second reading once more. And just to refresh your memories there, the application is only applying to the portion of the property that's zoned W1, waterfront commercial. It is split zoned with W2, waterfront industrial, but this is the portion of the building that's facing Argyle Street. In our analysis, the request for residential above commercial as a principal use is compatible with the intent of the waterfront commercial zone. It's supported by official community plan policy. There are mixed-use buildings already permitted all up and down Argyle Street, and an additional dwelling unit for the community would be beneficial. Barber, beauty shop, salon, and spa as principal uses at this property does align with the intent of the W1 zone as well, and it also aligns with that official community plan and waterfront policy that supports Harbor Quay as an attraction for visitors and residents. In terms of the parking, there will not be any dedicated parking spaces for the tenant at this property. It was constructed many years ago and has never had a parking space available for it, but the tenant may park in other areas permitted under the time limit rules of the traffic regulation bylaw. And the uptown neighborhood itself, just in terms of parking and downtown living, is a highly walkable commercial neighborhood. So we feel that the impact of permitting this use would be minimal. It is also one suite. Our recommendation is that council proceed with first and second readings of the amending bylaw and set a public hearing date for February 15th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there questions? Councillor Poon and then Councillor Solda.
I really do support the addition of residential in that area. I would love to see a more vibrant waterfront area, and adding residences there is definitely one way to do it. I am a bit concerned about the parking issue, but I think going forward maybe we will have more people walking around and maybe not using cars. So it's a great thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Solda.
I don't really have a question, Madam Mayor. I really like the idea of mixed use, and for the waterfront and for Argyle. Argyle is working quite successful, and there's always been discussion about more of this mixed use up in the Argyle area. We'll see with the OCP plan where that goes. And there has been concern before in the past regarding the parking, and where the resident wants to have their own little private parking, but because we have a shortage of parking in that area anyways, I think I support that, where your comments and stuff like that, so totally with it. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think it's becoming more commonplace anyways to, I mean, not in Port Alberni, but certainly in other communities to have a residential unit without a dedicated parking space. So that might be a hard thing for us in Port Alberni to wrap our minds around, because it hasn't been the expectation here, but the community is shifting for sure. And someone probably wanting to live in that type of unit is going to be potentially coming from a market where that, you know, has been commonplace. So I certainly don't see an issue with the parking concern. Councillor Paulson.
Just wanted to make a comment. I actually worked in that building for over 10 years, and anything that we can do, I think, to help the owner or the landlord to encourage business to root in there and stay in there. There's been a huge turnover in that building for many, many years, and in light of their renovations, it's a much more attractive building than when I worked down there. But I think if we can aid them in any way to get to yes, then it's a good thing for that area and for the Key.
Absolutely. Any other comments? Okay, Councillor Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, sorry. I agree with the other councillors, and like you say, we'll stay here with an open mind, and when we get to the public hearing, if there's something we've missed, I'm sure that a member of the public will bring it up and point it out to us before we get too far.
Absolutely, thank you. Councillor Washington, do you want to read the motions?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I move that zoning amendment number T29, site-specific use W1 waterfront commercial bylaw number 503 be now introduced and read the first time.
Seconded by Councillor Paulson. Seeing no further comments, all in favor? Carried.
And that zoning text amendment number T29, site-specific use W1 waterfront commercial bylaw 503 be read a second time.
Seconded by Councillor Paulson. All in favor? Carried.
And that zoning text amendment number T29, site-specific use W1 waterfront commercial bylaw number 503 be advanced to a public hearing on Tuesday, February 15th, 2022 at 6 p.m.
Seconded by Councillor Paulson. Seeing no comments, all in favor? Carried. Thank you. On to correspondence for action. Item number 1, from the Director of Corporate Services, 2022 AGM and Convention Association of Vancouver Island and Coastal Communities Resolution Notice and Submission Process. And there's a motion there, draft motion, that says that council identify, contemplate resolutions for submission, with the deadline being January 28th. I think that's supposed to say 2022 at noon. Council, I'm wondering if we would like to put forward a resolution regarding cannabis. I know that there have been, Twyla did some checking in there, there has been cannabis resolutions in the past. I think that where ours would be different from what has been previously submitted is that we would be asking UBCM to use their, lobbying abilities basically to request from the federal government that Health Canada be properly resourced to address community concerns and property issues. I think the difference there is we've asked, UBCM has asked for a lot of changes to, the 2-tier system, and actually quite a few different cannabis ones as the licensing has come out. There haven't been any specific to properly resourcing Health Canada. So I think that's something where we could put forward something that would be meaningful and that, would be broad across the spectrum of communities in the province being all needing the same type of support. Okay, so I don't have wording for something, but Twyla can come up with some fantastic wording if council would like to support putting that forward.
Absolutely.
Okay, and are there any other issues or specific items we would like to bring forward to AVICC to go to UBCM this year? Councillor Corbeil.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I sent late last week a couple resolutions to Twyla. Are we going to meet again before this 28th deadline?
And the resolutions are, they're up on the screen.
Oh, there you go. So yes, one on minimal barrier shelter standards and also advanced life support. And if I could, I'll just sort of give you my sort of rationale behind it. The first one, where the Ministry of Social Development and Poverty Reduction funds housing for low-income clients, oftentimes, and this is not just in Port Alberni, you see it all the time in the east end of Vancouver, where people are living in deplorable conditions, and yet the ministry is funding those. And I once had a friend who worked for the government, and his job was to ensure childcare was proper. And, you know, he would make sure that they had the right numbers and all that kind of thing, whereas it appears that there's no checks and balances when it comes to funding people in low barrier housing. The second one, I've been involved in a couple inquests where had there been a quicker resolve to the injured worker, and this happens not just to workers, but in my case it was injured workers, if they had the ability to get somebody in to the hospital via helicopter quicker, the person may have survived. So there are a lot of areas, certainly I think on the West Coast we're probably limited to helicopters, and in northern British Columbia, once you get sort of beyond Prince George, the need for better helicopters, similar to what they have in Alberta, would be extremely beneficial. So, thank you.
Thank you. I would definitely support both of those going forward additional, and just want to note, of course, that the first one follows quite well on the successful resolution we put forward to UBCM last year, which was around supportive housing and specifically access to detox, medical detox, and recovery centers for people struggling with addiction. So I think this follows on that, and certainly there should absolutely be checks and balances. And as we can see from the situation on 4th Avenue in our community, there clearly are not. Okay, thank you. Not seeing any other comments then. Would somebody like to move that the 3 resolutions put forward? Okay, thank you. Be
Second, Madam
submitted,
Mayor.
Prepared for AVICC. Moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Corbeil. All in favor? Carried, thank you. Okay, and on to item 2 from the Alberni Valley Community Forest, a letter dated December 17th, 2021. Requesting council support their decision to provide a donation to the Salvation Army for a community project at the corner of 10th Avenue and Redford Street. And my apologies for the late notice, but I am going to recuse myself on this one due to a conflict with my husband's employer.
Is it? Okay. Okay.
All right. Okay, so So what's councillor's pleasure? Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We spoke about this last year. A different group was going to head this project. Things just didn't work out. The Salvation Army has stepped up to the plate to lead this project, and the community forest, which has the ability to donate money, $10,000 annually to projects that are beneficial to the entire valley have indicated, as the letter says, that they would support this project to the tune of $10,000, and I'm very involved in it, and I look forward to getting started. And the idea is to beautify the corner of 10th and Redford with some greenery, and with any luck, once the snow melts, we'll start working on it. So, thank you.
Okay, just before the motion, can we just get a little history on it, on the property?
Certainly. So just to add additional information for council, just so that you're aware, the letter does address the items in the amendment bylaw that council adopted back in June of 2021, where it did give the community force the ability to entertain the applications directly, and once they found a request that they wanted to honor, that information would come to council. So hence, that's why it's before you today, just to have that support and approval stamp on that.
Okay.
The other aspect of this request relates to the property, as Councillor Corbeil indicated, at 10th and Redford, for beautification improvements by way of gardens and things of that nature on a temporary basis, or until such time as the property owner would choose to do something else with that particular piece of property.
And it'll be open for the public, correct?
It will be open to the public, correct.
Anybody else have any questions? No? Go ahead.
So if I could move the motion,
Yes.
Madam Mayor, that council support the request from the Alberni Valley Community Forest to provide a donation to the Salvation Army for a community project at the corner of 10th Avenue and Redford Street in the amount of $10,000.
Second. And all in favor? Any more discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, let's bring back the mayor. Oh, sorry.
Okay. Moving on to proclamations. Item number 1 from the Twinning Society. In celebration of the 35th annual Port Alberni and Abashiri as sister cities, and further to a number of proposals brought forward by the Twinning Society in commemoration, it is requested that Council proclaim the week of February 7th to 13th, 2022 as Abashiri Week in recognition of the February 9th, 1986 date on which the Sister City Agreement was signed. Would somebody like to move that? Moved by Councillor Poon. Is there a seconder?
Second, Madam Mayor.
Seconded by Councillor Solda. Any comments on this? Okay. I just want to thank the Twinning Society for the ongoing work that they do, and also the Abashiri Group Society that exists there, because for all the work that goes on here by the Society, it is just incredible the amount of effort and input and care that the Abashiri Group puts in. They're often sending letters and calendars and pictures of, their Canada Garden and things. And yeah, they're very dedicated to it. And it's really nice to see a very consistent group of people keeping that tradition going. So with that, on the motion, all in favor? Carried. And next, we have a letter dated January 4th, 2022 from the Alberni Valley chapter of the Canadian Council of the Blind, requesting that Council proclaim the week of February 6th to 12th, 2022 as White Cane Week.
So moved, Madam Mayor.
Moved by Councillor Solda, seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments on this one? Okay, seeing none, on the motion, all in favor? Carried. Great. And correspondence for information next. Twyla.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So Council has 13 items of correspondence, and I'll briefly highlight them as follows. Roland Smith, who speaks to Council meeting procedure and works regarding the Kingsway Hotel. A letter from City of Abashiri regarding their Sister City exhibition. You have 2 items of correspondence from different individuals speaking to the Bird Street beaver ponds. We have letter from Alberni Climate Action regarding the OCP public consultation process. Correspondence from BC SPCA regarding reassessing the use of rodenticides. Communication from resident regarding Connect the Keys and the SOMAS lands. A letter from Council of the District of North Saanich looking for a resolution to support parental leave for elected officials. Communication from Lookout Society, including their annual report and strategic plan. Girl Guides regarding World Thinking Day, which will take place on February 22nd of this year. Communication from Ministry of Transportation, which speaks to the default of 50 kilometers an hour through the Motor Vehicle Act, but also highlighting the ability that council can change speed limits and implement signage subject to resolution and by bylaw. You have BC Hydro Regreening Program update and minutes from the Museum and Heritage Commission meeting.
Thank you. Are there any items councillors would like to highlight? Councillor Washington and then Paulson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To our friends, Shari and Ross Stevens, they're concerned about the SOMAS mill. It's unfortunate that we don't take possession of that till I believe February the 14th. So what's going on down at the mill site is all Western Forest Products plan. It's not, we have no control till the 14th of February. Just, it's not the first concern that I've heard about this. So it's just to let them know it ain't ours till the 14th.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson and then Councillor Solda.
Well, I'm just looking at item K, BC Hydro Regreening Program update, and there may be an opportunity, Madam Mayor. I know
Some
how you
trees.
like trees. Might be an opportunity here for some supplemental funding and funding application. So it just may be something that, in conjunction with staff, that we'll have a look at.
Yes, I believe thank you for bringing that one forward. I believe the Director of Parks, Recreation, Heritage is on it, because I think she likes trees as much as I do, which is great. Councillor Solda and then Councillor Poon.
I know Mr. Anderson has asked council to read the letter of Mr. Smith out loud, but looking at the letter, it's a very long letter, but it's well written. And just to ask our Twyla, all this is on the internet. Anybody can read this, the letters and everything. That's correct.
That is correct. It's attached to the agenda package, so.
So I would suggest anybody really interested, please go and read all the letters. They're important, and people just don't write them just because they have, they believe in what they're saying, and a lot of it is true, and get out there and read it, but if it was a shorter letter, it would be different, but it's a long letter, so.
Thank you. Councillor Poon.
Thank you. I think this letter on municipal speed limits might be something we should be exploring, because there's a lot of pedestrian incidents lately in our community. Maybe there are certain areas of town that should have reduced speed limits in light of the pedestrian incidents we've been having.
Thank you. I think that it would be a good start for us to forward the letter to the Traffic Advisory Committee and see if there's any recommendations that come forward from there based on the letter. Who's our representative? Councillor Paulson. Councillor Paulson, can we rely on you to bring this letter forward? Okay. Thank you. Thank you. I have Councillor Corbeil and then Councillor Haggard.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. There's, I believe, 2 letters that refer to the beaver ponds. And, this comes up over and over again, and I just want to reiterate that I think it's section 9 of the BC Wildlife Act actually says that it's against the law to disturb beaver dens. So, I mean, it's not a municipal issue, it's a provincial issue, and I suspect they will handle any issues around the beaver ponds. Thank you.
Absolutely. And Scott, do you want to provide any kind of update if there is one? I know that you provided an overview at our last meeting, and I ask because I've seen on social media that that a representative of Sand Group is now saying that they are not amending their application. So there's a lot of confusion, and unfortunately when the company or the applicant is putting out so much information on social media and we're not seeing the same reaction here, it causes a lot of confusion.
to the best of my understanding, that it is still their intention to make a significant amendment to their application, to the point that a new architectural company that's been engaged by the SAN Group will be meeting with staff this week as a beginning to that. And so they'll probably have a fair bit of work to do to do that, and then resubmit whatever they do to us, and then we will begin an analysis. So it will still be some time before it will come to the Advisory Planning Commission and Council, but I certainly can keep Council updated as we go through. But to the best of my knowledge, the intention is to still, they will make a substantial change to that application.
Okay, thank you very much. That's helpful. I have Councillor Haggard and then Councillor Solda.
Great, thank you, Madam Mayor. I would just like to put out the letter from District of North Saanich regarding parental leave for elected officials. It won't apply to me, but I believe you were in that situation during your last term as council, Madam Mayor. But I think it's important that we support this initiative so we can hopefully attract a younger demographic to think about running for city council, and that won't prohibit them from doing so.
Yes, absolutely, and thank you. Completely agree, and I was in this situation, of course. I had my youngest daughter when I was on council, but my son was born 2 weeks before I was elected to council as well. And in neither of those situations did I have any leave from council. And to be fair, I also didn't want it, but not everybody, would share that. A lot of people would want the leave. So I think that enabling the ability for a leave to be taken by choice is really important. So appreciate that District of North Saanich is bringing this forward, and certainly have my support. And we don't typically, I know some councils do send formal support. We haven't really done that in the past, and I don't think it's really necessary here unless council wanted to, but I think just bringing it forward for conversation is a fantastic start and awareness.
Vote in favor of the resolution.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you. I have Councillor Solda, sorry.
Yeah, just a quick question. Any of the letters that have questions asked, do we formally send them answers back, or how does this work for us? Just because people have asked me in the past.
Scott?
We do, yes, we will confirm. We do go through the list of the summary, and if it does require, like, for example, we wouldn't necessarily write to Sister of Abashiri based on the content, but absolutely, if it does facilitate that, we do.
Super, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Washington?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The letter from the Alberni Climate Action is several mentions of greenhouse gases. I wonder if the regional district has any new data since the diversion of the organics going to another facility rather than to the landfill, if there's any positive news with that. If it's, I don't know if it's too early or not, because it's only been September, so, but I'd like to hear if we're doing any good doing all that work.
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm not sure how quickly the actual emissions would change, but the regional district has been doing a great job of putting out updates on what the amount of waste being diverted is. And they put one out as recently as today, a new press release. So yeah, the community is doing a fantastic job of using that new system, and our diversion numbers have gone way up, which is excellent. But Councillor Corbeil and I will bring that forward at the next regional district meeting to get an understanding of how they will measure emission changes at the landfill as well. I'll make a note of that. And seeing no other comments, sorry.
Just to add to that, Madam Mayor, I'm really happy to see that the regional district is considering having the regional district people join in this initiative as well. It's about time.
Yeah, and that's been a big topic of conversation. What I will say is I've seen certainly a willingness from directors to engage their communities and their areas about it. No commitment to actually bring that service forward yet, but really, wholeheartedly engaging in the conversation, and that's what we want. The service might look different in the regional areas, and that's one thing that's been talked about a lot. It doesn't have to mirror exactly what we're doing in the city of Port Alberni. The regional areas are different, but there's huge amounts of waste that come from the regional area, additional to just the city of Port Alberni, and we want to make sure that we're bringing down our numbers for the whole valley and not just the city. So having that conversation is so important. And I will just bring up Roland Smith's letter. As I stated at the beginning of the meeting, I do note that Roland commented on my procedural error, and appreciate that. I did reach out to Roland when I received the letter as well. And I know that he does ask a number of questions, some that that the city would have answers to and some that we may not. I think Councillor Solda was going to make a motion under new business, but it would probably be appropriate here if if council does want to direct me and the CAO to meet with Mr. Anderson, and I would say Roland if he is interested, but he might be perfectly happy with us meeting with Neil.
I'll move that.
Okay.
I actually have that written.
Okay, so moved by Councillor Solda and seconded by Councillor Poon. Any comments? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. No report from in camera. And council reports. Any items councillors would like to speak to? Okay, Councillor Washington.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a little bit of good news. We had our first Heritage Commission meeting January the 5th, and under old business, the train station. Site visit with construction manager and architect on December 9th to review project specifics. RFP is for prospective tenants is being finalized. Distribution date hasn't been set at the date of this meeting, but things are moving along nicely down the train station.
Great. Yeah, really happy to hear that. We're excited to see that project coming together, and certainly just, again, want to thank the province for the huge contribution that they made to funding of that project.
I didn't make a report, Madam Mayor, and slap my hand, but I just wanted to mention, and I know you were there, that the Maitland Street Village apartment complex had a soft opening in mid-December, and it's a project that's near and dear to me, and we now have, I think, 7 tenants in there, and through BC Housing vetting tenants for tenancy. So we're very excited about it. Received a recognition on the energy side of things on that building, and we're thrilled about that. And there's been talking around the committee room that we're looking for another piece of property for another project, so.
You know how I like to give
Yeah.
land out on behalf of all of us.
Yes.
We would love to have a conversation. I'll just echo you on that, or echo your comments. Really, really impressed with the building, and I felt fortunate to get to walk through, but want to commend you and Mike and your entire board on that facility. It is fantastic, and and we should all be very proud to have, certainly to have, more affordable housing opening up in our community, but affordable housing that is low energy focused as well is fantastic. So I'm really excited to see it, and I can't wait until it's full, which I'm sure it will be in no time, because there's certainly a need. Great. Okay, any other items from council? Councillor Solda.
So, Madam Mayor, 2 things. One is, we had someone who passed away who volunteered all the time. There's a lot of people in Port Alberni who do all this and volunteer and everything. Mr. Lionel Sear, he was a volunteer in the community with seniors, with the arts, square dancers, musical theater. He was just a well-rounded person, and I just want to let the public know, thank you. Without Lionel, the Portal Players, he did so much work there. And the seniors, you would always see him dressed up, serving tea to seniors and in the old-fashioned way. So I just wanted to bring that up. And also, some happy news. We all have heard of her. I want to just say congratulations to American Idol Top 20 of our Lauren Spencer Smith. She had her picture, if you haven't seen it on Facebook, in the New York Times. They have those big billboards, and actually you'll see her really excited about it when she was there, and she had to phone her mom and let her know. And she's got the #1 song on Spot iTunes, fingers crossed. If you haven't had a chance to listen to it, it's excellent. And she's like making her way. She's 13 million times her music was played on Spotify, and she's up on the 100 of Apple Music. So congratulations to her. I know she is from Port Alberni, and Nanaimo and Port Alberni seem to be tugging at her where she's going to go, and she's actually moving, I believe, to New York.
Yeah.
To continue with her career. So congratulations, and I'm sure her family's very, very proud, as well as Port Alberni, our community. Thank you.
Absolutely, yes, thank you for both of those things. And I did send a congratulations to Lauren personally on behalf of council a few days ago. Yeah, really proud. She's done a fantastic job, and her dad lives in town still. Her mom's in Nanaimo, but she's here and there, and on to New York next. So yeah, very excited to have someone with so much talent from the community. Okay. With that, we will move on to new business. And so I think there was a request for me to just give a bit of an update and overview on the BC assessments. So certainly happy myself to answer any questions or staff if there are any, but I think just generally probably looking for an overview. So there has been a lot of talk in the community over the last couple weeks since assessments came out. The average assessment in Port Alberni has increased by 47%, which was the third highest in the province increase, and the highest on Vancouver Island. So it's really exciting in some ways and really concerning in others. Certainly it's a balance. We know there are many people moving to the community, choosing this community for lifestyle rather than just affordability. And I think that brings a great new energy to the community, and I think it also highlights the good work that's being done here and the shift that's happening. So really happy about it on that side of things. And on the other side of things, it creates a whole new level of affordability challenge that we know already existed in the community and is getting worse and worse. So there's lots of work to do on that front, and I don't want to get too much into that here today, but there are some great examples of affordability projects aside from just the affordable rentals that we're already tackling here, some affordable ownership projects that other municipalities are leading the way on. So definitely a conversation that this council will have in the near future. But on assessments and as it relates more to us taxes, I just want to clarify for members of the public who may be concerned, who have seen that 40 or 50 or 47% increase on their property assessments, that you will not as a result see a 47% increase on your taxes. So as we know, but is not often widely known by community, your assessment increase and your tax increase are not directly, are not one-to-one. So basically, if your assessment went up by 47%, the same as the community average, then you should only see an increase of our budget, our financial plan change, which is expected to be between 1% and 5% this year. If your assessment went up 20%, then you'll likely see a decrease on your taxes. So it's not about how your assessment went up individually, it's about how your assessment went up relative to the community average, which is 47%. And of course, we adjust our tax rate down based on the new assessed values. Councillor Solda.
And Madam Mayor, may I add that if you're not happy with your assessments, you have time to go and argue it with the assessors. And,
a little bit.
A little bit, yes, a little bit.
A little bit of time still.
And I always tell people, if you're planning to sell, great, let it be. But if you're not, go fight it if you're not happy.
Yeah.
Don't wait, okay? Because you're going to pass the deadline.
Yeah, so the really important thing is people often don't really think about appealing their assessment until they get to their tax bill in May, June, July, and they see how it translates to taxes. If you feel that your assessment is not fair, whether it's too high or too low, you have until January 31st to file an appeal with BC Assessment. And that is a process that the city has nothing to do with. So information is on BC Assessment's website for that. Okay, Councillor Poon.
Would you also like to add something about how new development affects the tax increases?
Yeah, absolutely. So new development is referred to as non-market change for assessments, and we had an incredible amount of new development in our community. If I could just steal Councillor Solda's handy sheet she has here. So, $21 million in permit levels. Those may not be all fully assessed yet, but in new single-family homes, just as one example. So that new development gets added into our tax roll and begins to offset some of the other increases that are happening. So yeah, there's a lot to consider, but if people are concerned, they certainly, as a start, should come out to our January 24th Committee of the Whole budget meeting at 4 p.m. You can follow the budget process. The City of Port Alberni Facebook page and the website will both keep you apprised of all of the meeting dates. And as well, of course, if it's value related for your home, that you should make sure you don't miss the January 31st deadline. Councillor Corbeil.
Madam Mayor, could you comment on the threshold for the homeowners grant? I've had people tell me that, you know, they're fearful they're going to lose that.
Yes, so the provincial government is responsible for the homeowners grant, not the city, not each municipality on their own. There has been some concern in the community, but the provincial government did recently increase the limit for a home to apply for the homeowners grant, which is the $770 a year deduction from property taxes, to $1.94 million, I believe. So should not be a concern for houses in the city of Port Alberni. I know some concern was expressed at the regional district table, specifically Sprout Lake and Beaver Creek, who, you know, are fortunate to have some taxpayers coming in at over those amounts. If you are over 1.94 million, yes, you will lose your grant. And that is unfortunate, I guess, but also fortunate that you have a $1.94 million home, $1.95 million home. Councillor Paulson.
I'm not in that category. I just want to say for anybody who might be listening, and with regards to the appeal process, I have actually participated in that appeal process twice. You do have to do some homework with regards to properties around you and prepare your case. But in both cases for me, the process was fairly simple. And I found that BC Assessment was really excellent to work with. Maybe that's because both cases it was a positive outcome, but don't be afraid to engage them. And you're right, you only have till the end of January, and yeah, it's not that difficult a thing to do, and you might get your wish.
Yeah, and I just want to say as a final comment that I know there's been some comments about BC Assessment doing a bad job on assessments as well, and I just have to say that I strongly disagree with that, and I've looked at probably approaching 100 different houses and specific houses that I know what they've sold for recently. And BC Assessment has done a fantastic job this year of really, there have been increases, absolutely, but that's the market value of those houses. And if you look at what houses have sold for compared with what they're assessed at, they are very, very close. So that's the intent of BC Assessment, is to get as close as possible to what the real market value of a home is. Doesn't mean we agree with what the value of a home should be. And there's a larger, higher level government conversation to be had there about keeping houses affordable. But houses are being assessed at very close to what they're selling for currently. There's also been a bit of a call for BC Assessment to come out and actually appraise each of the houses. And that is just insane. That would never be practical. They could not possibly hire enough appraisers to appraise every single house in the province. And if they did, we'd be paying a lot more for a service that works as is very well. So if we pay attention to our assessments, if we feel they're not fair, we have every right to appeal them. But I want to commend BC Assessment, I always mix them up, BC Assessment for really doing a very good job of nailing what the market value currently is of a home in our community. Okay, seeing no other comments, we will move on to question period. And I should add, sorry, that if my explanation of how taxes versus assessments is not clear enough, BC Assessment actually has some much better information than I can quickly put out on their website. So it's bcassessment.ca, and definitely take a look there. They've got videos and really clear, simple explanations for anyone who's curious. Question period. If any members of the public would like an opportunity to ask a question to council. Come on forward, Mr. Anderson.
Thank you. Just one correction, Councillor Solder. I did not ask for that letter to be read out. I understand. I just referring it to the public that they should read it because the guy's so good at writing letters. It's unfortunate if you miss it. And he brings out a lot of items that I have been able to do. Secondly, on the Association of Vancouver Island Coastal Community meeting, it's coming up. A few months ago, I talked briefly about senior citizens and the plight that some of them are facing, even staying in their own homes, taxes, insurance, upkeep, etc. And the minimum increase that we're looking at in old age pensions, I think it's 10% in April or something. I worked it out at $85 a month. That buys me a coffee every couple of weeks and a few donuts. Would this be an opportunity, as to what I was talking about it briefly before, for the municipalities to put a resolution in as advocates for seniors in their communities to the federal government to start seriously looking at doing something to enhance the amount of money that the seniors are getting to live on?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we typically try to put forward, and AVICC is a great body, obviously, moving into UBCM, can advocate to the provincial or federal government, and both would be relevant. What we typically try to do is make sure that what we're putting forward has not been put forward in the past, as then it's already, a mandate that is being worked on, or not too similar, at least something that's put forward every year that we don't need to add on to. And then we try to be specific as well. So I'm not sure what, I think we would need some ideas around specific resolutions or specific actions you'd like to see for us to consider.
Well, if
But
it's
this is certainly,
sorry, go ahead.
a body that that we can utilize to advocate for this type of issue.
If it's being submitted before, then put another one in just saying we should be more aggressive in pursuing this. It doesn't harm to submit. Couple of questions, and I'll keep them brief, and I don't actually expect an answer at this time, but it's on the Kingsway I have to ask. My question that I asked a while ago, who was the subcontractors, who was the general contractor, who was the plumbing contracts, who was the electrical? I don't think it's fair if that information should be available, because when you first went to look at whether permits were necessary and that there was, and found out that there was no, then the question I would have expected to be asked by the city at the time, and it's not the current building inspector, and unfortunately the other one, unfortunately, isn't here to answer questions. But the train of thought here, having a Biden moment. When the question was asked, when the question was asked, was there any permits taken out? That question should have also been asked of these subcontractors. They are as much responsible as the owner of a building to ensure that they have taken out permits to do the work. And I never have had an answer to that, and I think it's a reasonable question to ask, and that would imply who. I was given one name of a plumber, and I don't believe that they did any work. They may have been called in to do a job. They didn't do that work. So I don't mind if it's not answered here, because I don't think the name should be brought up and implying that they're responsible for some of the stuff that I did see there. But I would like to know who they were and whether who currently are the contractors doing that work, if I may somehow get that information. And the recent inspection that I think was done, it was reported on by our CEO at the last meeting, that there was a meeting with McGill Contractors, who are a reputable company. I'm glad they're there. And the staff, city staff, engineers, they found some non-compliance issues there. Was that the first inspection that had been done on the building, or was there previous inspections done over the last 2 years? I'm a little confused about that. I got the impression that report, which encompassed a lot more than our CEO talked about, sort of opened the eyes to City Council here. Was it the first inspection that was done, or was there previous ones done within that 2-year period when I first brought the issue up?
I'm not sure we can accurately answer that question today, but we certainly can answer that question. I just want to make sure that anything put forward that we look at the full history of when inspections did happen, because I'm not sure we readily have that today.
Yeah, and the reason I'm asking, I'd be very much surprised if this was the first one. And so, and then what happened between a subsequent one and now, why there's still these deficiencies. I mean, I understand that McGill is doing the supervising, and I have complete confidence in their ability, and along with the current building inspector and our CEO, I guess, temporary CEO. So I'm confident that with these people working together, that these issues will be resolved, and with the cooperation of the owner as well. So these are questions that I would like some responses to, if I may, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Would any other members of the public like to ask questions? Come on forward. And if you don't mind just stating your name and address for the record.
Okay. My name is Diane Proctor. I live at 3122 Sweet Place. I sent a letter to Mayor and Council, and I'm just wondering if anybody read it. And I just need to say that I don't understand how Mayor and Council can actually decide that they're going to give themselves a raise, a fairly hefty one, I thought, without asking the people who are going to be paying this money. How does that happen? And also, how do you decide that you're going to spend, like I saw 900,000, I don't know if that's correct, but I'm thinking of this key-to-key walkway. I know Mayor likes or hears that it's a good thing and from other people. I don't know who you're talking to, because everybody I talk to absolutely thinks it's a waste of money. And I think it's a waste of money. I know I'm throwing a lot of things out here, but because I don't have my thoughts organized. But I do know this. In this time, in this country, we are so far in debt, we cannot see the top of the pool. Speaking of pools, I hear we need a new one.
I do just want to clarify that this is question period, so
there is.
We do require a question.
I want to know, do you not have to have a referendum to spend this kind of money? The citizens that you're supposed to be working for, do you just have the authority to just go ahead and say, well, this is what we're going to do? Oh, you don't like it, too bad. How do you get to this kind of spending without a referendum?
Thank you for the question. So I heard a couple questions there. Do we need a referendum? No. The basic reason is we are not borrowing for this project. There's more to it than that. I would as well like to refer you to the letsconnectpa.ca website. There is a frequently asked question document there on Connect the Keys, as well as a lot of just really helpful information. There's a lot of misinformation in the public about this project.
Mm-hmm.
So, certainly hear your opinions and thoughts on it. There's a lot of information there that some of it probably will be helpful. It may not change your opinion on the project, and, totally appreciate that. But certainly answer to some of your questions there. And then I just wanted to respond as well about how do we give ourselves a raise? Well, we haven't. There has been no raise. There is a raise scheduled for the next council, And that is, so, you know, do we have to ask members of the public? Yes, we do during an election, who gets elected to earn those wages. Council has a policy that reviews council and exempt staff remuneration once every term, and the exempt staff remuneration is implemented as soon as council wants it to be, but council, any changes to how much we are paid is implemented for the next council, so not for ourselves. And a third party, of course, was involved to make the recommendation on the amount. It didn't come out of thin air.
Yeah, was it a biased person, I wonder?
No, it was a firm that does this for other local governments and was used by the regional district as well recently.
Okay. I just want to say, why on earth would you go and get this raise for somebody else? You're saying that this raise of 40% or 39 for you, but you're not getting this. So what are you telling me? You're going for a raise that you're not going to get. It's going to go to somebody else. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. So it may go to some of us sitting in these chairs if we choose to run again for these positions, and if the community chooses to elect us. It is unfortunate that there is not a better mechanism to address council and mayor wages. Nobody else has the authority to decide them but us, and that puts us in a really difficult position. So what this council has chosen to do is make that as third party as possible, and separate the decision as much as possible from any ability for ourselves to benefit from it without the community having an opportunity to step in and say no. So the community's opportunity to do that is during the election. But unfortunately, there's no other way for us to review what council and mayor should earn.
And actually, in real life, I have at different times been a volunteer or something like that. And in real life, people that are running for mayor and council, they're a certain breed of person. And I think that most times they're there to actually help. They really want to do something good for the community. But in reality, if you go ahead and get a 40% raise or whatever, I'm sure you're not going to have too much competition. Nobody wants to do your job anyway, so you're going to get it, aren't you? Just saying.
Only if we choose, we want to run again. Thank you very much for your questions.
right.
As noted, this is question period, so it's not an opportunity to just share opinions.
Yeah.
I appreciate that you've asked a few questions. Thank you for that, and you're welcome to come back to a future meeting and speak
Okay.
at public input
Well,
period.
thank you very much for that. I guess I do have a big learning curve. Thanks.
Thanks for joining. With that, would somebody like to move adjournment? Moved by Councillor Poon, seconded by Councillor Paulson. All in favor? Carried.